There are a lot of reasons for needing a transition from traditional energy to renewable energy. Climate change is the most urgent and acute. Amongst other things, climate change is making the old energy systems less reliable, with extreme weather events disrupting transmission in South Australia, with heat waves and bushfires creating major risks for traditional energy and its transmission over much of eastern Australia through the last summer. With climate change, we're going to need a complete decarbonisation of our electricity systems by the middle of the century. I'm pleased to see that the Victorian government has recognised that reality. It's implicit in the agreements reached by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in December 2015. That's going to require a lot of change. Change to achieve that goal would require a carbon price of around $40, rising with the interest rate. That's a measure of the cost that fossil fuels impose on the rest of the economy and society. Generally, when one business forces costs on the rest of the community, it either is regulated so as not to be allowed to do that, or it has to pay the cost of cleaning up. It will be much cheaper for a builder just to throw all of the spare bricks and cement over into the yard next door than to have to clean up the costs that are imposed on others. But we've got regulations that prevent builders taking that antisocial approach. If you don't have a carbon price on pollution, then you are subsidising the activity that generates the damage to others. And this is clearly recognised by the International Monetary Fund. It's a fundamental principle of economics. We are subsidising fossil fuel generation of electricity by around $40 per tonne of carbon dioxide. Well, we don't have that carbon price in Australia. We are using a number of other mechanisms that will encourage the energy transmission. We've received assistance from an unexpected quarter, or at least unexpectedly strong assistance from that quarter, and that is the cost of renewables has fallen much more rapidly than anticipated when I did my major work on the energy transition and climate change for all of the state and federal governments of Australia about a decade ago. Since then, the cost of renewable energy has fallen across the board, most rapidly for solar photovoltaic, where panels are now 85% cheaper than a decade ago. Intermittent energy from solar and wind requires balancing by storage, by interconnection, by geographic diversification, by technological diversification or other means. And the cost of balancing renewables has fallen at the same time as the cost of renewables themselves. The costs of battery storage have fallen more or less in line with photovoltaic in the last few years. And the technologies have improved very rapidly, so that you can now much more efficiently and smoothly integrate renewable energy storage and interaction with the grid. This is making the transition substantially easier economically than one might have anticipated, and that I anticipated in my two climate change reviews, which began a decade ago. The new technologies are introducing a great diversity of opportunities, grid-level storage and renewables generation, but also distributed. The old regulatory systems are unsuitable for getting the most out of the new technology. So one of the challenges of the transition is to make sure that our regulatory arrangements are not biased against the new technologies. If we remove those biases, then the falling costs of renewables and the falling costs of storage will facilitate transition along the lines required. Government policy needs to be supportive in other ways to make up for the fact that fossil energy is heavily subsidised by the absence of any requirement for them to pay the costs of the damage they impose on others. But the combination of more efficient regulation, the falling costs of renewables and storage, and innovation in the use of the two technologies can go quite a long way to getting us to zero net emissions by the middle of the century. As chairman of Zen Energy, I'm quite deeply involved in a practical way in finding grid level and distributed solutions to the energy issues. And in that work, I've been excited by the enthusiasm of Australians working at council level, at community level, to make sure that they play their part in the necessary transition. This too is an unexpectedly strong asset in the transition that Australia has to make. Through the harnessing of these local energies, through systematic approaches to reforming regulatory arrangements, through making sure that we've got our minds on all of the opportunities for low-cost transition, I see Australia making its full contribution to the international effort, and that will require zero net emissions from electricity by the middle of the century. Thank you.